Well, we finally put a shovel in the ground. A big milestone for us. It was just enough to put in a temporary driveway. Let's take a look at the process.
It has track. It has a bucket on it. The other one has a blade.
It's always good to have a review of tools before you get started. Many thanks to grandson number one for that one. You can really appreciate how much topsoil there is here. Very, very hard to get down to a level in which you just see good old-fashioned fill. The rest of it is this dark earth that I think is probably a remnant of many years of farming this property. Here's a great example of how thick the topsoil was here. Just take a look here at what was shaved off, and you can see the subsoil here in the light brown color. And that topsoil is a good 2 feet thick just in this space here. And we've seen that kind of all around the property. Well, I'm standing up in the middle of where the house is eventually going to go, and you're starting to see that they're piling up topsoil in a few places. And believe it or not, we've had to be reasonably strategic about the approach. This area here to the south of where the house is going to have ground loops for geothermal in it, and so we needed to avoid that spot. And as we go north here, you can see the orange fencing we've set up in order to protect where the septic mound is going to be. So we need to be pretty strategic about where we're putting this topsoil for the time that it's going to be here on the property. And we're excited that we've got lots of topsoil. That'd be great. It'd be nice to have a little more fill for the project as it goes. But nevertheless, the strategy begins even at the very first day of putting a shovel into the ground. Well, we've been learning an awful lot about actually how to build a road. Actually, maybe this isn't a big fancy road that you might have when you're building a highway. But one of the key things that I've been learning here is that there's a couple of different kinds of stone that come from the quarry. And this they call number 3 clear stone, and I think that's just because these rocks are about 3 inches in one dimension or another. And then on top of it, we have this other stuff we call number 3 top bond, and the idea here is that it's the thing that's supposed to actually bond together the road as it fits together. And I learned actually that what happens is that this top bond that you hear is more or less how it comes out of the grinder at the quarry, and the white stuff has been washed and filtered, and it's all basically bigger rock. You put the two of these together, and you can see here how when you just have the white stone, it gives us a nice base, but it's that top bond that actually gives you something that feels like a surface when you're all done. One of the things I think is pretty funny is that Nancy and I set up these stakes out here. We were kind of staking out where we thought the building might actually be. And it's pretty funny to see the bulldozer actually respecting those little stakes we put out here. We were pretty clear that they weren't placed by a surveyor, but nevertheless, he thought they might be useful from the perspective of at least knowing about where the house will be. So here we are kind of laughing that our really amateur's job of staking out the house is going to be respected by the bulldozers. Here's a little GoPro that we're using to try to chronicle what we've been doing. And we did some experiments, and we learned that really the GoPro can't go all day recording what's happening. So we've figured out how to power it. You can see the cable here is a little DC cable. We're running off of this little battery here. It comes from Anchor, and the name of the product is Solix, S-O-L-I-X. a little DC battery, very portable and chargeable off of the sun. And so we're keeping that battery pretty nicely charged. It's keeping the GoPro charged, and the GoPro is keeping a chronicle of the recordings of the activities here on site. I'm standing here kind of along the east-west line of where the house is going to be. You can kind of get a sense of it, and of course the big question is, why did we scrape the topsoil all the way down to that south end of the property? And the answer is that this is where the geothermal loops are going to go. And so as long as we had the equipment out here, we took the opportunity to scrape the topsoil off. And one of the first additional suppliers to come in here is going to be the folks who are going to dig the pit and put the ground loops in for the geothermal system. Well, we've already talked about how we had to be strategic about the placement of the piles of topsoil. We talked a little bit about the next supplier coming in, and thought I'd just maybe give you a hint of the planning that's going into this. We've been 4 years thinking about this, and we still think we're learning something new every day. We built out this schedule using Google Sheets as the tool, and you can see we've got status of activities, and as we go through it, that'll play it out into a schedule, which you can kind of see here. And one of the things we've been really aware of is that winter happens in Wisconsin. So for each of the things that goes in here, we actually have a column of activities we like to avoid doing during the winter. And this then can move activities either out early or do it earlier in the process so that we can avoid winter, or move it after the winter happens. And so we have this schedule building out, and this is extremely optimistic. If everything went the right way and the weather cooperated at every step, we could be just a year away from building. We're planning for a couple of years as we go. And then what we've done under each task, we started to identify what has to happen before it, what materials are we going to need, what tools or equipment are we going to need, and then what are the specific activities that you're going to need in order to run through this project step by step.